Hey guys! Tonight we slip into the salty, wind-whipped world of a Viking market, where the air hums with the clatter of coins and the sharp tang of fish and leather. Picture yourself standing on a wooden dock, the North Sea lapping at your boots, as traders shout over piles of furs and amber. You're clutching a tiny folding scale, its bronze arms glinting in the weak Nordic sun, ready to haggle like your life depends on it. Spoiler: you probably wouldn't survive a week here. Between the freezing rain and the dubious stew, your modern stomach would wave a white flag. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your city and local time. I'm curious where you're drifting off from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're in a bustling Norse market, maybe Birka or Hedeby, around 900 CE, where Viking traders from across Scandinavia swap goods like it's Black Friday on a fjord. Your scale, no bigger than your palm, is your lifeline. Vikings didn't mess around when it came to fair deals. Historians say these portable scales were everywhere, used to weigh silver, the currency of the Viking world. You fumble with the scale, its delicate arms swaying as you try to balance a chunk of hacked silver against a tiny weight. A trader, his beard braided with beads, eyes you suspiciously, probably thinking you're a rookie. The market's chaos is overwhelming. Vendors hawk wool cloaks. A kid darts through with a basket of apples, and a seagull swoops low, eyeing your bread. You focus on the scale, feeling the weight of a deal in your hands. A quirky tidbit. Some scales had weights shaped like miniature axes, because Vikings loved their branding. You notice your weight has a tiny Thor's hammer etched on it. Cute. But you're not sure it'll help your bargaining. Historians still argue whether these scales were for daily trades or just big deals. Some say they were as common as wallets today. You offer the silver to the trader, who squints and tests it on his own scale. The crowd's noise, shouts, laughter, a hammer banging nearby, makes it hard to focus. Joke number 1. You're so bad at this, they'd trade you for a half-rotten cod. The deal goes through, and you swap the silver for a small amber bead. The scale folds neatly, tucking into your leather pouch, and you feel a rush of pride. Joke number 2. If you tried running this market, you'd cause a riot over unbalanced apples. The mainstream fact hits. Viking trade wasn't just about goods, it was about trust, and scales like yours kept things honest. You glance at the trader, now haggling with someone else, his scale dangling from his belt. The sea breeze carries a chill, and you pull your cloak tighter, the market's rhythm sinking into you. Joke number 3. You're haggling so weak, you'd trade your boots for a seagull's lunch. The sun dips lower, the dock creaks underfoot, and you're ready to dive deeper into this world of weights and deals. You're still in the Viking world, the air sharp with the tang of molten metal and pine smoke, but now you're crouched in a smoky smithy, the glow of a forge casting shadows on timber walls. A Viking smith, his hands scarred and steady, hammers a strip of bronze, shaping the delicate arms of a folding scale. You're here to learn how these tiny tools were crafted, your fingers smudged with soot as you pass him tools. The North Sea's roar hums outside, and you're marveling at how something so small carries so much weight in this trade-driven world. Historians note that Viking scales were masterworks of precision, often made of bronze or iron and designed to collapse for travel. You watch the smith fold the scale's arms, each no thicker than a knife blade, and attach a pivot pin with the flick of his hammer. The forge's heat makes your face prickle, and you're already sweating through your tunic. A quirky tidbit. Some scales were decorated with tiny runes, maybe for luck or to brag about the smith's skill. You spot a faint spiral on the arm he's shaping. Nothing fancy, but it's got swagger for 900 CE. You hand the smith a lump of lead for the scale's weights, and he grunts, melting it into a mold. Your job is to polish a finished arm, but your cloth snags, earning a scowl. Joke number 1. You're so bad at this, they'd use your scales to weigh feathers and call it a day. Historians still argue whether smiths specialized in scales or just moonlighted between swords. Some say the best ones were as famous as warriors. You think back to the market yesterday, that trader's scale glinting as he weighed your silver. The smith tests the scale, balancing a weight against a scrap of bronze. It tilts perfectly, and he nods, tossing you a rag to keep polishing. The smithy's rhythm, hammer clangs, bellows wheezing, sparks popping. blends with the sea's distant crash. You try hammering a spare strip, but it bends wrong, and the smith chuckles. Joke number 2. Your smithing's so rough, you'd forge a spoon and call it a spear. The mainstream fact lands. Scales were vital for Viking trade, ensuring every deal was fair, from amber to slaves. You glance at the pile of finished scales, each folded like a pocket knife, ready for a trader's pouch. The smith's hands never stop, shaping another arm with the ease of breathing. You're starting to feel the craft's weight. Every scale ties back to the market's bustle, the silver you traded. Joke number 3. You're so clumsy, you'd hammer your thumb and start a new Viking curse. The smith hands you a completed scale, its arms cool and smooth, and you tuck it away, the forge's glow fading as you step into the chilly night, ready for what's next. You're still in the Viking world, the salty spray of the North Sea stinging your face as you stand on the swaying deck of a longship, its timbers creaking underfoot. The air smells of tar and wet wool, and you're clutching your tiny folding scale, its bronze arms tucked safely in your pouch. You're sailing with a crew of traders, bound for a distant market, and now you're learning how to weigh goods on this rolling ship. The horizon tilts with each wave, and a grizzled trader, his cloak pinned with a bone brooch, hands you a sack of hacked silver to measure. You're trying not to puke, and the stars above aren't helping your balance. Historians confirm that Viking traders used portable scales on ships to settle deals mid-voyage, ensuring fairness even at sea. You fumble with the scale, its arms swaying as you hang it from a rope to steady it. The silver, chopped bits of jewelry and coins, clinks in your hand, and you place it on one pan, a lead weight on the other. The trader watches, his eyes sharp. A quirky tidbit. Some scales were so sensitive, Vikings could weigh a single silver shaving. Talk about splitting hairs. You notice your weight has a tiny knot pattern, probably some smith's flex from that forge you visited. The ship lurches, and you nearly drop the scale, grabbing the mast for support. The crew laughs, their beards dripping with spray. Joke number 1. You're so wobbly, they'd trade you for a seasick goat. Historians still argue whether shipboard weighing was common or reserved for big deals. Some say it was a flex to show trust in rough waters. You think back to the smithy, those delicate arms you polished now swaying in your hands, tying you to this moment. You adjust the weight, the scale tilting until it balances, and the trader grunts approval. "The silver's worth a few furs," he says, "but you're too busy not falling overboard to care." The sea's rhythm, waves slapping, oars splashing, a gull's cry, mixes with the crew's low chatter. You try again with another pile, but a wave tilts the deck and the silver slides. Joke number 2. You're weighing so bad, you'd sink the ship trying to measure a pebble. The mainstream fact hits. Silver was the Viking world's currency, and scales like yours kept trade honest, from Burka to Byzantium. You tuck the scale away, the pouch heavy against your chest, and glance at the trader, now sorting amber beads. The night's creeping in, the stars sharper now, and you're starting to feel the ship's pulse. You're tied to the market's bustle, the smith's hammer, all through this tiny tool. The trader hands you a sip of sour ale from a skin, hardly refreshing, but it's something. Joke number 3. You're so green, you'd weigh the ale and drink the scale. The ship sails on, and you're ready for whatever this voyage brings next. You're still on that Viking longship, the North Sea's chill seeping into your bones, but now you're crouched in the hull. The dim light of a swinging oil lamp casting shadows on the damp timbers. The air smells of salt water and sour sweat, and you're clutching your folding scale, its bronze arms cool in your hand. The trader from the deck, his voice low to cut through the waves' roar, is explaining why these scales were the backbone of Viking trust. You're learning how they kept deals fair, even among strangers who'd sooner draw a knife than shake hands. The ship rocks gently, and you're trying not to bang your head on a low beam. Historians say scales were crucial in the Viking Age because silver, often hacked into bits, varied wildly in value without precise weighing. You watch the trader pull a scale from his belt, identical to yours, and balance a jagged silver arm ring against a lead weight. His fingers are steady, despite the ship's sway, and you realize this ritual is sacred in its own way. A quirky tidbit. Some Vikings buried scales with their dead, maybe to barter in the afterlife. Imagine haggling with Odin over a pint. You check your scale's pivot, hoping it's as reliable as his. You try it yourself. hanging your scale from a rope and placing a silver scrap on one pan. The lamp's flicker makes it hard to see, and the trader smirks at your squinting. Joke number 1. You're so clumsy, you'd weigh a fish and call it treasure. Historians still argue whether scales prevented fights or just delayed them. Some say a bad weigh-in could spark a brawl faster than a bad ale. You think back to the shipboard weighing yesterday. How that trader's nod sealed the deal. The scale balances, and you feel a flicker of pride, but the trader adjusts a weight, showing you missed a fraction. Trust, he mutters, is in the balance. The ship's rhythm, creaking wood, muffled oars, a sailor's cough, grounds you, tying you to the smithy's forge and the market's chaos. You try again, this time nailing it, and he claps your shoulder. Joke number 2. Your skills are so shaky, you'd make Thor himself double-check his hammer's weight. The mainstream fact lands. Scales weren't just tools, they were symbols of honor, ensuring no one got cheated in a world where trust was scarce. You tuck your scale away, its weight reassuring in your pouch. The trader shares a story of a deal gone sour. Someone tried passing lead as silver, and scales saved the day. The night's creeping in, the lamp's glow fading, and you're starting to grasp why these tools mattered. Joke number 3. You're so bad at this, you'd trust a seagull to weigh your gold. The ship sails on, the seas hum lulling you, and you're ready for the next lesson in Viking trust. You're still in the Viking world, the North Sea's icy spray misting your face as you cling to the rail of a longship, its dragon-carved prow slicing through the waves. The air reeks of damp wool and fish, and your folding scale, tucked in a leather pouch, bumps against your chest with each lurch. You're sailing with a crew of merchants bound for a distant market, their laughter mingling with the wind's howl. The stars are peeking out, and you're learning what it's like to be a sea-bound trader, your scale ready for deals in foreign ports. The ship's sway makes your stomach churn, and you're praying you don't feed the fish tonight. Historians confirm Viking traders sailed far. Think Byzantium, Baghdad, even Greenland, carrying scales to weigh silver wherever they docked. You watch a merchant, his beard crusted with salt, check his cargo. Furs, walrus ivory, and jars of honey. He pats his scale, muttering about a Frankish trader who tried shorting him last season. You pull out your scale, its bronze arms glinting in the fading light, and practice balancing a lead weight. A quirky tidbit. Some Vikings hung scales from their belts like bling, a flex of their trading cred. Yours feels heavy, like it's carrying the smithy's fire with it. The deck's a mess. Ropes coil, barrels shift. A sailor trips over an oar. You try weighing a scrap of silver, but a wave tilts the ship, and the scale swings wild. The merchant laughs, steadying your arm. Joke number 1. You're so seasick, you'd weigh the waves and call it profit. Historians still argue whether Vikings traded more for wealth or prestige. Some say far-flung voyages were about bragging rights as much as silver. You think back to the trader's lesson last night, how trust hung in the balance of those tiny arms. You retry the scale, hanging it from a mast rope, and this time it steadies, the silver leveling out. The merchant nods, tossing you a dried cod to chew, tough as leather, but you're starving. The sea's rhythm, gulls screeching, sails flapping, oars dipping, pulls you into the voyage. You're starting to feel the scale's power, a tool that'll speak for you in markets from Dublin to Novgorod. Joke number 2. Your weighing's so shaky, you'd trade your scale for a bucket to puke in. The mainstream fact hits. Viking trade routes knitted the world together, and scales ensured every deal, from silk to slaves, stayed fair. You tuck the scale away, the pouch snug against your tunic, and glance at the crew, their faces weathered but alive with the thrill of the sea. The stars brighten, tying you to the market's bustle, the smithy's clang, the trader's trust. A sailor hums a saga, and you lean into the rail, the ship's roll lulling you. Joke number 3. You're so green, you'd weigh the stars and sink the ship. The horizon calls, and you're ready for whatever port lies ahead. You're still in the Viking world, the chilly air of Hedeby's harbor biting your cheeks as you step off the longship onto a creaking wooden dock. The scent of smoked fish and pine tar fills your nose, and your folding scale swings in its pouch, ready for action. You're in Hedeby, a buzzing trade hub in 900 CE, where Norse, Saxon, and Slavic merchants haggle under a gray sky. You're bartering now, your scale the key to fair deals in this chaotic market. The crowd's din, shouts, cartwheels squeaking, a hammer's clang, makes your head spin, and you're hoping you don't fumble your first trade. Historians call Hedeby a Viking Age hotspot, a melting pot where goods like amber, furs, and silver changed hands daily. You weave through stalls, clutching a bundle of wool, and approach a trader with a stack of iron tools. He eyes your scale as you unfold it, its bronze arms steady despite your shaky hands. A quirky tidbit. Some Hedeby scales were found with weights marked by Arabic script, proof of how far Viking trade reached. Your weight has a simple rune, but it feels exotic in this crossroads town. You hang the scale from a stick, balancing your wool against his silver scraps. The trader tests it on his own scale, nodding slowly. Joke number 1. You're so nervous, you'd trade your boots for a bent nail and call it a win. Historians still argue whether Hedeby's markets were tightly regulated or a free-for-all. Some say scales kept things civil in the chaos. You think back to the shipboard weighing, how the sea's sway tested your skill. This market's no less daunting. The deal seals, and you pocket the silver, your scale folding neatly away. The market pulses. Vendors hawk glass beads. A kid chases a stray goose, and you dodge a cart piled with hides. You try another trade, offering silver for a carved antler comb, but your scale tilts wrong, and the trader smirks. Joke number 2. Your bargaining's so bad, you'd swap your scale for a seagull's lunch. The mainstream fact hits. Hedeby's wealth came from trade, and scales like yours ensured every deal held up, from local furs to eastern silks. You moved to another stall, the trader's wife weighing your silver with her own scale, her eyes sharp. The crowd's noise blends with the harbor's hum, gulls crying, waves lapping, a distant horn. You're starting to feel Hedeby's rhythm, your scale tying you to the ship's cargo, the smithy's forge, the sea's roll. You nail the next trade, swapping silver for a sack of salt, and grin like you've conquered a fjord. Joke number 3. You're so slow, they'd hire a turtle to haggle faster. The sky darkens, the market's energy crackling, and you're ready for whatever deal comes next. You're still in Hedeby, the harbor's briny air mingling with the scent of fresh-cut wood and warm bread. But now you're standing in the bustling market. your folding scale dangling from your fingers. The pale Nordic sun glints off its bronze arms, and you're weighing hacked silver, chunks of rings, coins, and bracelets sliced into bite-sized bits. Traders crowd around, their voices a low roar as they barter for furs and amber. You're learning why silver's shine drove Viking trade, your scale the key to unlocking its value. The market's pulse, clinking metal, a donkey bray, the creak of stalls, wraps you, and you're trying not to drop your precious cargo. Historians confirm that hack silver was Viking currency, chopped up to make change in a world without standard coins. You pour a pile of jagged silver scraps onto your scales pan, balancing them against a lead weight etched with a tiny ship. The trader, his cloak heavy with bone pins, watches closely, his breath fogging in the chilly air. A quirky tidbit. Some Vikings mixed lead into their silver to cheat scales. Sneaky, but your trader's too sharp for that. You check the weight, feeling the sun's weak warmth on your neck, and hope you've caught any fakes. The scale tilts, and you adjust, earning a grunt of approval. The crowd jostles you, a kid nearly knocking your elbow, and you steady the scale like it's a holy relic. Joke number 1. You're so shaky, you'd weigh a feather and start a trade war. Historians still argue whether hack silver was used for every deal or just big ones. Some say it was as common as pocket change. You think back to Hedeby's stalls yesterday, how your scale sealed that wool deal. This silver's the next step. You swap the silver for a bundle of fox pelts, their fur soft under your fingers. The trader tests your scale again, his own hanging from his belt like a badge. The market's rhythm, vendors shouting, a hammer banging, gulls overhead, grounds you, tying you to the ship's sway, the smithy's fire. You try weighing another pile, but a gust tilts the scale, and the trader chuckles. Joke number 2. Your skills are so rough, you'd weigh the wind and call it profit. The mainstream fact hits. Silver was the Viking Age's lifeblood, and scales ensured every chunk, from arm rings to coin scraps, held true value. You tuck your scale away, the pouch snug against your tunic, and glance at the trader, now sorting a pile of amber. The sun climbs higher, casting long shadows, and you're starting to feel the weight of this shiny metal's power. You're handed a sip of mead from a horn. Sweet, but it doesn't help your focus. Joke number 3. You're so bad at this, you'd trade your scale for a half-eaten bread loaf. The market hums on, and you're ready for Hedaby's next lesson. You're still in Hedaby, the market's clamor fading as you trudge up a muddy path to a quiet hill, the air sharp with the scent of damp earth and pine. Your folding scale swings in its pouch, and you're clutching a chisel, following a stonecutter who's carving a runestone to seal a trade deal. The gray slab looms under a cloudy sky, its surface etched with curling runes. You're learning how scales witnessed Viking agreements, their precision carved into stone for eternity. The distant harbor hums, waves lapping, gulls crying, and you're trying not to trip on a root. Historians note that runestones often commemorated trade ventures or inheritances, sometimes mentioning silver weighed by scales. You watch the stonecutter chip away, his hammer steady as he carves a line about a merchant's voyage to Russ lands. Your job is to scratch a rune for silver, but your chisel slips, leaving a wonky mark. A quirky tidbit. Some runestones boast of deals so big, the silver weighed could buy a ship. Talk about flexing your scale skills. You glance at your scale, tying you to the market's silver piles from yesterday. The stonecutter grunts, correcting your grip, and you try again, the runes slowly taking shape. The hill's quiet, save for the chisel's tap and a breeze rustling the trees. Joke number 1. You're so bad at this, your runes look like a toddler's treasure map. Historians still argue whether runestones were legal contracts or just braggy memorials. Some say they served both, like a Viking billboard. You think back to the hack silver you weighed, how its glint-fueled deals now etched in this stone. You step back, the runestone's runes glinting faintly in the dim light. The stonecutter points to a line about a scale's balance, a nod to trust in the deal. You try carving another rune, but the chisel jams, earning a sigh. Joke number 2. Your carving's so rough, they'd use your stone as a doorstop. The mainstream fact lands. Runestones tied trade to legacy, with scales ensuring the silver's worth was true, from Hedaby to far-off markets. The path back to town stretches below, tying you to the ship's sway, the smithy's fire, the market's roar. A raven perches nearby, eyeing your chisel like it's lunch. You shoo it, clutching your scale for luck. The stonecutter hands you a sip of ale from a skin, sour, but it warms your chest. You're starting to feel the weight of this moment, how your scale's balance lives in these runes. Joke number 3. You're so clumsy, you'd carve your name backward and start a new myth. The clouds shift, a sliver of sun hitting the stone, and you're ready for whatever Hedabe's traders teach you next. You're still in Hedabe, the crisp air tinged with the scent of seaweed and smoked meat. But now you're standing in the bustling market, your folding scale clutched tightly as you approach a stall run by a woman with sharp eyes and a silver brooch pinning her cloak. Her table is piled with amber beads and wool cloth, and she's weighing a trader's silver with her own scale, its bronze arms glinting in the morning light. You're learning how women traders wielded scales in Viking markets, their precision cutting through the chaos. The harbors hum, shouts, creaking ships, a gull's screech surrounds you, and you're trying not to stare at her confident ease. Historians confirm women in the Viking Age were active traders, often managing households or markets with as much clout as men. You watch her balance a hacked silver ring, her fingers steady as she adjusts a weight etched with a tiny wolf. She glances at your scale, nodding for you to try a deal. You offer a small fur, unfolding your scale, but your hands shake under her gaze. A quirky tidbit. Some women's graves held scales, suggesting they traded far beyond their villages. Imagine her sailing to Dublin with a pouch of weights. You fumble with the lead weight, tying you to the runestone's runes from yesterday. The scale tilts, and she corrects your balance with a smirk, her own scale already back in action. Joke number 1. You're so nervous, you'd trade your cloak for a seashell and call it a steal. Historians still argue whether women traders were equals in markets or faced pushback. Some say their silver spoke louder than any prejudice. You think back to the Stonecutter's Hill, how those runes celebrated deals like hers, sealed by scales. You try again, weighing her amber against your silver. The market swirls, vendors hawk fish, a kid spills a basket of apples, and you focus, nailing the balance this time. She grins, handing you the amber. The mainstream fact hits. Women traders were economic pillars. their scales ensuring fair deals that fueled Hedabe's wealth. You tuck your scale away, the pouch snug, and feel the market's pulse, bargaining, laughter, a hammer's clang. You're starting to see her world, where scales were power. Joke number 2. You're haggling so bad, she'd barter you for a half-cooked cod. She shares a story of outsmarting a Saxon trader who tried passing fake silver. Her scale caught him cold. The harbor breeze carries a chill, and you pull your tunic tighter, the amber warm in your hand. You're tied to the ship's sway, the smithy's fire, the runestone's weight, all through her steady hands. Joke number 3. You're so clumsy, you'd weigh her beads and lose the scale. She offers a sip of mead from a horn, sweet, warming, and you're ready for whatever Hedabe's market throws next. You're still in Hedabe, the night air thick with the scent of roasted boar and pine smoke. But now you're weaving through a chieftain's feast, the long hall's timber walls echoing with laughter and the clink of drinking horns. Your folding scale swings in its pouch, and you're tasked with weighing silver gifts presented to the chieftain, his fur-clad bulk looming at the hall's head. Torches cast flickering shadows, and you're learning how scales shone in Viking feasts, sealing bonds as much as deals. The halls roar, shouts, a skald's chant, a dog's bark, makes your hands tremble, and you're praying you don't fumble under those watchful eyes. Historians note that Viking feasts were social glue, where gifts like silver were weighed to show generosity and trust. You approach a trader, his cloak heavy with amber pins, who offers a hacked silver bracelet for the chieftain. You unfold your scale, its bronze arms catching the torchlight, and balance the silver against a weight etched with a raven. The chieftain leans forward, his beard glinting with mead, a quirky tidbit. Some feast gifts included scales themselves, a nod to the givers trading cred. Imagine gifting a fancy calculator today. You steady the scale, tying you to the women traders' precision from yesterday. The scale balances, and the crowd cheers, but your fingers slip, nearly dropping a weight. The trader laughs, steadying your arm. Joke number 1. You're so shaky, you'd weigh the mead and gift the table. Historians still argue whether feast weighings were ceremonial or practical. Some say they were both, a flex of wealth and fairness. You think back to the market's bustle, how your scale-sealed deals now echoed in this hall's splendor. You moved to the next gift, a pile of silver scraps from a young warrior. The scale tilts, and you adjust, earning a nod from the chieftain's wife, her eyes sharp. The hall's rhythm, lutes strumming, cups clinking, a drunk guest snoring, grounds you. You're starting to feel the scale's power, a tool that binds this feast to Hedabe's markets. Joke number 2. You're weighing so bad, you'd gift the chieftain a pebble and call it treasure. The mainstream fact hits. Scales at feasts weren't just for show, they ensured gifts matched promises, keeping alliances tight. A servant hands you a horn of mead, sweet, but it doesn't calm your nerves. You weigh another gift, nailing the balance, and the chieftain raises his horn, toasting the giver. You're tied to the smithy's fire, the ship's sway, the runestone's runes, all through these glinting scales. The torchlight dances, the hall's warmth sinking into you. Joke number 3. You're so clumsy, you'd weigh the chieftain's beard and start a saga. The feast pulses on, and you're ready for whatever this night demands next. You're still in Hedabe, the morning air crisp with the scent of wet grass and smoked fish. But now you're sitting cross-legged in a merchant's hut, the walls hung with furs and flickering in the light of a single oil lamp. Your folding scale rests on a wooden table, its bronze arms folded neatly, as you pore over a pile of wax tablets etched with Viking trade laws. A grizzled merchant, his fingers stained with ink, points to a line about fair weighing, explaining how scales enforced justice in Hedabe's chaotic markets. The harbor's hum, distant shouts, creaking ships, a gull's cry, filters through the reed door, and you're trying not to smudge the wax as you learn the rules that kept traders honest. Historians confirm that Viking markets operated under oral and written laws, with scales central to preventing fraud. You trace a tablet's scratches, noting a rule that fined traders for faulty scales. Serious business when silver was king. The merchant hands you a stylus to copy a line, but your marks wobble, earning a grunt. A quirky tidbit. Some laws required public weigh-ins at markets, like a Viking weigh-off to shame cheaters. Imagine a medieval trust fall with scales. You glance at your scale, tying you to the chieftain's feast last night, where you're weighing sealed gifts. You try again, scratching a rule about standard weights, but the wax smears, and the merchant sighs. Joke number 1. You're so bad at this, they'd ban you from writing shopping lists. Historians still argue whether these laws were enforced by chieftains or market elders. Some say traders policed themselves to keep the peace. You think back to the women traders, their scales balancing amber and silver. Those laws protected their deals, too. The merchant reads aloud. A trader caught with a rigged scale could lose their goods or face exile. You imagine the market's bustle, your scale ensuring fairness amid the chaos. The hut's rhythm, lamp flickering, stylus scraping, a dog scratching outside, grounds you. You're starting to feel the weight of these laws, how they held Hedeby together. Joke number 2. Your copying's so messy, you'd write a law banning mead and spark a riot. The mainstream fact hits. Scales were the law's backbone, ensuring every deal, from furs to swords, stayed true, fueling Viking trade networks. You lean back, rubbing your eyes, and the merchant offers a sip of ale from a clay cup. Sour, but it sharpens your focus. You're tied to the smithy's fire, the ship's sway, the feast's torchlight, all through these rules etched in wax. The merchant points to another tablet, detailing penalties for short weighing, and you nod. The scale's power clearer now. Joke number 3. You're so slow, they'd hire a raven to enforce the laws faster. The lamp's glow softens, the harbor's hum lulling you, and you're ready for Hedeby's next lesson under its gray skies. You're still in Hedeby, the air heavy with the scent of damp wool and charcoal, but now you're standing on a windswept dock, your folding scale clutched in your hand as you face a Frankish trader, his cloak trimmed with fox fur. The gray sky spits drizzle, and the harbor buzzes with Norse and foreign merchants swapping goods, silk, wine, amber. You're trading with outsiders, your scale a bridge across cultures where mistrust runs deep. The dock's rhythm, waves slapping, ropes creaking, a barrel rolling, mixes with the trader's thick accent, and you're trying not to let the rain ruin your balance. Historians confirm Vikings traded far beyond Scandinavia, with scales ensuring fairness in deals with Franks, Russ, and even Arabs. You unfold your scale, its bronze arms slick with mist, and weigh a pile of Frankish silver coins against your lead weight, etched with a tiny boar. The trader eyes you, testing his own scale to double-check. A quirky tidbit. Some foreign traders scratched marks on Viking weights to claim them, like medieval graffiti. Your wheat's clean, but you check anyway. You steady the scale, tying you to the merchant's hut yesterday. Those wax tablets full of trade laws. The scale balances, and the trader nods, offering a small jug of wine for your silver. The rain makes your fingers slip, and you nearly drop a coin. Joke number 1. You're so shaky, you'd trade your scale for a soggy loaf and call it a deal. Historians still argue whether scales eased tensions or just highlighted mistrust. Some say they were neutral ground in a world of clashing egos. You think back to the chieftain's feast, how your scale shone in the torchlight. Here, it's your only ally. You try another deal, weighing your amber beads against his iron nails. The dock sways underfoot, and the trader's stare feels like a challenge. You nail the balance, and he grunts approval, tossing in a bone comb. The mainstream fact hits. Scales made global trade possible, letting Vikings swap goods with distant cultures, from Hedeby to Constantinople. The harbor's pulse, gulls screeching, a sailor's curse, the clink of coins, grounds you. You're starting to feel the scale's power, a tool that speaks louder than words. Joke number 2. You're haggling so bad, you'd swap your boots for a Frankish sneeze. The trader shares a sip of his wine, sharp, warming your chest, and mutters about a Saxon who tried passing pewter as silver. Your scale caught a fake once, you brag, and he laughs. You're tied to the smithy's fire, the runestone's runes, the market's laws, all through this tiny tool. The rain eases, the harbor glinting under a sliver of sun. Joke number 3. You're so clumsy, you'd weigh the drizzle and sink the dock. The trader packs his coins, and you're ready for whatever Hedeby's global market throws next. You're still in Hedeby, the air sharp with the scent of pine resin and freshly tanned leather. But now you're striding through a Norse village just outside the market, your folding scale dangling from your belt like a badge of honor. The late afternoon sun casts long shadows across thatched roofs, and villagers, spinners, carpenters, kids chasing a pig, pause to nod at your scale, its bronze glint catching their eyes. You're learning how scales signaled wealth and status in Viking society. A quiet flex in a world where silver spoke louder than words. The village hums, hammers banging, a loom's clack, a goat's bleat. And you're trying not to trip over a stray chicken while looking like you belong. Historians note that owning a scale marked you as a player in Viking trade, someone with connections beyond the fjords. You stop by a weaver's hut, where a woman admires your scale before offering a wool cloak for a silver scrap. You unfold the scale, balancing her silver against a weight etched with a tiny dragon, and feel eyes on you. Status isn't just the silver, it's the tool. A quirky tidbit. Some Vikings wore scales as pendants, like medieval bling, to flaunt their trade savvy. You adjust your pouch, letting the scale peek out, tying you to the Frankish trader's dock from yesterday. The scale balances, and the weaver grins, tossing in a bone needle as a bonus. A kid gawks, whispering to his friend about your magic balance. Joke number 1. You're so awkward, you'd flaunt your scale and trip into a pig pen. Historians still argue whether scales were elite status symbols or common tools. Some say even farmers had them, but yours feels special here. You think back to the trade laws, how they protected deals like this, making your scale a village star. You moved to a carpenter's stall, weighing silver for a carved stool. Villagers linger, impressed by the ritual, and you stand taller, the scale's weight reassuring. The sun dips, painting the village gold, and you're sinking into its rhythm. Laughter, a fire crackling, a dog's bark. You nail the balance, but a gust tilts the scale, and the carpenter chuckles. Joke number 2. Your skills are so shaky, you'd weigh a cloud and call it treasure. The mainstream fact hits. Scales weren't just practical, they were social currency, elevating traders in a culture obsessed with prestige. A girl offers you a cup of buttermilk, sour, but refreshing, and you sip, the scale swinging as you lean against a fence. You're starting to feel like a local, your scale tying you to the smithy's fire, the runestone's runes, the feast's gifts. The carpenter shares a story of a trader whose scale won him a chieftain's favor. Joke number 3. You're so clumsy, you'd flash your scale and drop it in a well. The village glows under the fading sun, and you're ready for whatever status your scale brings next. You're still in Hedeby, but now you're huddled on a storm-lashed longship, the North Sea's fury whipping rain and salt into your face as waves crash over the deck. The air reeks of wet wood and fear, and your folding scale, tucked in its sodden pouch, feels like a lifeline as you cling to a rope. You're with a crew of traders, their faces grim under dripping hoods, trying to salvage a deal gone wrong amid the tempest. A Saxon merchant, his cargo of wine barrels rolling loose, accuses your crew of short-weighing his silver. You're learning how scales held firm in crisis, proving trust when tempers flare. The storms roar, howling wind, splintering waves. A sailor's shout drowns your thoughts, and you're praying you don't slip into the sea. Historians confirm Viking traders faced storms and disputes, with scales often settling arguments when goods or trust faltered. You stagger to the merchant, unfolding your scale as the ship lurches, and hang it from a trembling beam. You pour his silver scraps onto the pan, balancing them against a lead weight etched with a tiny axe. The crew watches, their knuckles white on the oars. A quirky tidbit. Some traders swore by storm weights, heavier to counter a ship's sway. Yours isn't one, so you're winging it. You steady the scale, tying you to the village's admiring glances yesterday. The scale swings wildly, rain blurring your vision, but you squint, adjusting the weight until it holds. The merchant tests his own scale, nodding grudgingly as the storm howls. Joke number 1. You're so soaked, you'd weigh the rain and call it silver. Historians still argue whether scales resolved disputes or just postponed fights. Some say a fair weigh-in could calm a brawl faster than mead. You think back to the trade laws, how they demanded honesty even in chaos like this. You shout the result over the wind, and the merchant hands over a wine jug, the deal salvaged. The ship tilts, and you grab a barrel to stay upright, your scale slipping back into its pouch. The storm's rhythm, crashing waves, creaking timbers, a gull's defiant cry, grounds you, and you're starting to feel the scale's power in this mess. Joke number 2. Your balance is so shaky, you'd weigh a wave and sink the ship. The mainstream fact hits. Scales were Viking lifelines, ensuring fairness when storms or greed threatened trade, from Hedeby to foreign shores. A sailor tosses you a rag to dry your face, and you wipe the salt, the scales weight reassuring against your chest. The crew's working to secure the barrels, their curses lost in the gale. You're tied to the smithy's fire, the runestone's runes, the market's laws, all through this tiny tool holding firm. The merchant mutters thanks, his anger fading, and you manage a grin. Joke number 3. You're so clumsy, you'd weigh the storm and start a new saga. The ship battles on, the stars hidden, and you're ready for whatever this crisis throws next. You're still in Hedeby, but now you're perched on a weathered wooden bench at the harbor's edge. The night air soft with the scent of salt and distant campfires. Your folding scale rests in your lap, its bronze arms folded, glinting faintly under a sky bursting with stars. The market's clamor has faded, leaving only the gentle lap of waves against the docks and the occasional creak of a moored longship. You're reflecting on the legacy of these tiny scales, how they shaped Viking lives from markets to storms, tying every deal, every journey, to a balance of trust. The night hums. Crickets, a far-off flute, the rustle of reeds, and you're sinking into the quiet, letting Hedeby's lessons settle like sea mist. Historians agree scales were more than tools, they were the Viking Age's heartbeat, ensuring fairness in a world of silver and ambition. You trace the scale's smooth edges, picturing the smith's forge, the storm-lashed ship, the women traders' steady hands. Scales didn't just weigh goods, they weighed honor, binding Hedeby to distant ports. A quirky tidbit. Some scales were passed down generations, heirlooms of trade. Imagine your scale outliving you, haggling in a future saga. You tuck it into its pouch, tying you to the storm's chaos from yesterday. The harbor stretches dark and still, its ships bobbing like sleeping giants. You think back to the runestone's runes, the feast's gifts, how your scale anchored every moment. Joke number 1. If you tried trading now, you'd weigh a star and bankrupt the sky. Historians still argue whether scales sparked Viking expansion or just rode its waves. Some say they made global trade possible by grounding every deal in truth. You lean back, the bench creaking, feeling the weight of that legacy under these endless stars. The mainstream fact lands. Scales left a mark beyond Hedeby, their precision echoing in every market from Dublin to Baghdad. You imagine traders long gone, their scales glinting under these same stars, their deals shaping the world you've walked. The night's rhythm, waves whispering, a gull's soft call, feels like a lullaby, pulling you deeper. Joke number 2. You're so tired, you'd weigh a dream and call it silver. You close your eyes, the scales weight fading, and let the stars carry you. Now, let's ease you toward sleep, cradled by Hedabe's quiet harbor under a blanket of stars. Picture yourself on that bench, the sea's gentle lap against the docks, a soft, endless rhythm, the air cool and light on your skin. The markets bustle, the storms roar, the scales glint. They're slipping away, softening into memories as faint as a ship's wake. You're safe here, wrapped in the stillness of a night that's held Viking sails for centuries. Let your breath slow, matching the tide's rise and fall, each wave carrying you deeper into calm. The scales wait, the silvers shine, the markets hum. They dissolve, leaving only the stars, their light a whisper of deals long sealed. You don't need to hold on, the harbor keeps Hedabe's secrets, its waters rocking you like a longship at rest. Feel your shoulders sink, your thoughts drift, like amber beads floating on the sea. The night is gentle, the stars endless, and you're gliding, carried by the same winds that pushed those traders' sails. Every worry, every rush, it's gone, replaced by the peace of a harbor at rest. Let the waves fade, let the stars blur, and sink into a sleep as deep as the North Sea's heart. You've walked Hedabe's paths, weighed its silver, and now it's time to rest. Sweet dreams, under the stars that watched those scales balance. Joke number 3. You're so relaxed, you'd sleep through a Viking raid and miss the loot. The night holds you, and Hedabe's legacy whispers. You've earned this calm,